Hey, how you doing?
Hey, good morning. I'm good.
Oh, got the Landing AI sweatshirt on. That's great. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, likewise. Nice to meet you.
Today I'm joined by Andrea Kropp, an applied AI engineer at Landing AI. Landing AI builds tools like LandingLens for computer vision and ADE, their Agentic Document Extraction system, for turning messy documents into clean, structured data. Andrea helps developers and enterprise teams adopt these tools, design real workflows, and move AI systems into production. She previously led ML teams at Gartner and DataRobot, working on everything from real time recommendation engines to large scale NLP pipelines. She's also a developer educator, a serial entrepreneur, and a tennis coach. Andrea, thanks so much for joining me.
It's great to be here, Brandon. Thank you.
So, I'd love to learn more about Landing AI. How would you describe it at a high level, and what does the company actually do?
Yeah, so at a high level, we're focusing on visual AI technologies. And many people, when they hear visual AI, they think of like picture creation, like a mid-journey. But we're really focusing on understanding visual content. So whether it's photographs, whether it's video feeds, or whether it's documents. So we focus on technologies that help companies understand visual inputs.
When was the company founded?
You know, I know it's in the 2010s. I think we're about 7, 8 years old at this point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Landing AI has a couple of different tools: the Agentic Document Extraction tool, or ADE, and LandingLens. What is each product designed for?
Yeah, I'm going to start with LandingLens because that was our flagship product when we launched the company, and then ADE is newer, and it'll help it connect the two to explain them in that order. So LandingLens helps individuals develop their own computer vision models and just makes that a process super easy. So, typically will save you about like 80 to 90% of the effort to develop your own computer vision model. So our core technology comes from that computer vision space. And then we've applied that to Agentic Document Extraction, which is our newer product, which understands any type of document kind of out of the box with no layout training. So any PDF, any JPEG, any Google Slides, any Excel document. So it's focused on document understanding.
Okay, and you work on both of these products, or do you focus on one?
So I work with customers in the field to achieve success with both of those products. So yes,
Both
I
products.
work
Okay.
with both of them back and forth.
What are some of the typical use cases for both of these tools?
Yeah. So the sets of customers are somewhat distinct. I would say for Landing Lens, our primary industry has been manufacturing. So in manufacturing, there's a lot of visual inspection. So there may like be visual inspection of different assembly steps. There's visual inspection for defects. And you see this for like small manufactured products like semiconductors, but also like large products like automobiles. So really heavy kind of manufacturing visual inspection. Also like infrastructure inspection. So inspecting roads, inspecting utility infrastructure, sometimes with drones. So that kind of visual inspection is the most common use case for Landing Lens, but it's really quite flexible and you can do a lot of things with it. So even retailers will be like monitoring security cameras and you can look for, how many people are in line at the checkout stand, right? Or you can check for like planogram compliance of like your CPG displays. So
Oh,
really
wow.
quite broad on the use cases.
That's amazing. So, like for manufacturing, for that use case, what's the process? Like they're taking pictures of products and then they're asking questions about what potential defects or errors.
Yeah, so in manufacturing, there are typically fixed camera systems. So, like, I'll take semiconductor, for example. So, semiconductors are laid down in like different layers, and I'm certainly no expert here. But typically, after each layer is laid down, there's a scanning electron microscope image taken of that layer to detect any defects before the next layer covers it up. So in that case, we're working mostly with SEM images. And so there would be fixed lighting, fixed cameras, and there'd
Oh,
be
I see.
a high scale process to take a picture of each layer of each semiconductor.
Okay. It's completely automated, right? At some point, they build a model to do this. It's taking in the images. And what is it like returning, if you will? Like a report or some type of log of potential errors? Or what does it actually look like on the client side?
Yeah, so for computer vision, you can frame your problem as like object detection, segmentation, or classification. So for that defect detection, typically there's an object detection of like, yes, this is a defect in the upper left corner.
Oh,
And then there will typically be a classification of that defect. So like this is a
oh,
scratch, or this is a burn, or this is, whatever other class. So there's often two computer vision models involved, one to detect the defects and one to classify them.
oh, wow. That's cool. And these models, you mentioned that you can build custom models, right? That's why this platform is so robust. Are there like out of the box models that clients can use? Like if they're doing something like quote unquote standard, I don't know. Like are there templates you start with, if you will? I don't even know what the platform looks like. We'll see it later, but
Yeah. So I'm going to say no, because typically when people think like out of the box model, they're thinking of like a model to detect cats or a model to
oh, right.
detect cars, right?
Right.
And those types of models are freely available on the internet, right? They're really easy to get. So there's no reason to train your own model to detect a cat or detect a car, which
Right.
is why like we're typically working with these more unique images, right? Like you're not going to find something off the shelf that like understands your like scanning electron microscope images.
Right.
So typically customers are training their own models on their own images, and they're using a process called transfer learning, starting with some of our reference architectures.
Oh,
So it's almost like we provide like the intermediate model, and then they kind of train it to conclusion.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. We'll definitely get more into that in a
Yeah.
bit. What are some of the typical use cases for agentic document extraction?
So they really fall into two buckets. One is where the goal is ultimately to extract certain key value pairs. So we call that field extraction.
Mhm.
And the other would be to prepare documents for RAG, right, which is retrieval augmented generation.
Mhm.
So a typical use case, if you think about you as a consumer, like applying for a mortgage, right? And your bank is going to ask you for like a bank statement and maybe a W-2 and maybe a pay stub and maybe a utility bill, right? So you submit all of these documents as part of your application. And now the bank has to do something with all of that. So this would be a great example of field extraction where they're able to use our tool to automatically scan all of those documents and say, Andrea lives at this address. Andrea's like 2024 wages was this. Andrea's current bank balance is this. And it really can expedite like that mortgage underwriting process by not having to like manually scan through all those documents. So that would be like a great example of field extraction.
Who are your main competitors in this space? Like, do each of these tools have major competitors?
The two tools do have completely different sets of competitors. So since we were just talking about document extraction,
Yeah.
I would say in that space there is the general purpose LLM
Yeah.
or LVM, right? So the Geminis, the Claudes, the ChatGPTs of the world. So some people are just like feeding that kind of document, saying like, what are the total wages on this document?
Right.
We'll just send it to a general LLM.
Mhm.
Um, we actually run into a lot of in-house teams that are trying to do this themselves. So, like in-house data science teams at large corporations are also trying to solve this document understanding problem. So that's
Mm.
probably category two. And then category three, is a bunch of startups that are, trying to tackle just documents, right? They're not trying to do this like general purpose AI.
Mhm. And then what about for LandingLens?
Yeah, the main competitor there is like open source do it yourself, right?
Oh.
So typically you would have, a data scientist on staff that has experience with TensorFlow or PyTorch or
Mhm.
other like deep learning models. And typically, like Typically, the main competition there is do it yourself.
Okay, so you're an applied AI engineer at Landing AI. First of all, are you the only applied AI engineer or are there others?
Oh, no. No, no,
Okay.
no. That would be very bad if I was the only one. Yeah.
Like looking at your LinkedIn, like I saw the role. You can't tell sometimes.
Yeah.
Is this the role or are there others in the same position?
Yeah. We are aligned geographically. So I live on the West Coast and I primarily support
Oh, okay.
West Coast accounts.
So what does that role mean inside of the company? What do you do?
I help customers achieve technical success with our products, right? So we've
Okay.
discussed two main products.
Yep.
People will come to us sometimes with a well-formulated problem statement, sometimes just a nebulous idea. And then kind of I stick with them through the whole journey of kind of understanding their problem, understanding what technology they already have, what they've already tried, what the end result is supposed to look like, and then how our technology is going to slot into that.
Okay. So this is interesting to me. So you work with a company, potential client, they have some problems they want to solve. You help them come up with solutions. Do companies always work this way with Landing AI, or do you have like self-service kind of tools as well? Like, could I use LandingLens, build my own model if I knew how to do it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All of our tools are intended to be self-service, and
Okay.
so that's part of why we do focus a lot on technical education.
Okay.
So yeah, like you can sign up for a free account for actually both tools and you can start using them and, let us know if our technical education isn't enough to get you started. But that is the goal is to empower the users rather than to do it for them.
So the customers you work with, are these customers that just have like more complex problems, so they need help, or they just don't know how to use the tools, and so you'll work with them even if the problem is not a difficult problem to solve, you'll work with them anyways.
So I work in the enterprise segment, which is mostly organizations that are spending about $75,000 a year with us or more. So
Okay.
it's hard for me to comment on kind of the smaller accounts.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So like for these larger accounts, we are providing fairly like white glove service.
Hmm.
So some of them may have been completely successful independently, and others do appreciate the guidance and advice.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but we
Okay.
have a lot of self-serve kind of like pay as you go, just swipe your credit card customers that, I don't actually get to talk to, but that are also succeeding with our products.
Okay. So agentic document extraction, how do customers or how do you help customers use the platform? Is it like browser based? Is there an API? Is there some other way of utilizing the technology?
So there is a visual user interface, but it's fundamentally an API service.
Okay.
So the way to think about it is we have a playground experience, which allows you to drag and drop, point and click, and is entirely visually driven. And then once you that's really kind of where you prove the concept and kind of fall in love with the product.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, kind of in this point and click, drag and drop, like then you would transition to the API where you can do, like tens of thousands of documents per day if you wanted to.
So if I had like kind of a one-time document extraction job that I wanted to run, maybe it's me, maybe it's my company, could I use the browser-based version for that? Like, could that be used for production or is it really just for testing?
Well, if it's a one-time job, I would argue that's not a production use case,
Well,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah.
But if it's a
But
real, I guess a real use case for my company.
yeah, yeah, you can absolutely use the user interface. The user interface will limit you to a document with 100 pages.
Oh,
So
okay.
as long as it's under 100 pages, you can just drag and drop it in there. You can
Okay.
download the result and never touch the API.
So when you're helping companies use the API for their workflows, what is the implementation process? How are they accessing the API from within their organization? What does their infrastructure need to look like in order to integrate with your API?
It doesn't really require any infrastructure on their point. So they can call our REST API. We also have a Python library. You can also
Okay.
integrate it with a Java application. But typically the workflow is like the documents are starting somewhere, right? So the
Yeah.
documents might be like in an S3 bucket, they might be in SharePoint, they like the documents exist somewhere, right? Then they are sent, one at a time or in batch to our API, and then the results need to be saved somewhere. And so sometimes people want to like save the results into Databricks or save into Snowflake or save into BigQuery. So typically that is the flow, is like the documents exist somewhere, they go through our API, and then the response gets saved somewhere else.
Okay, interesting. And then once a company has kind of a workflow up and running, you've helped them build this, it's working. Do you support them for some number of months? Do you support them consistently as long as they're using and paying for the product? What does the support look like? Is that something you do, or does that hand it off to another team?
So I do not do ongoing support. We do
Okay.
have different support tiers depending on which plan you're on.
Yeah.
So we have a developer relations team that supports users in Discord. So like that's mostly for our pay-as-you-go and lower tier subscriptions. There's a
Okay.
Discord community with, probably over 2,000 people. Um, as you move up in tiers, like we'll create a dedicated Slack or Teams channel with that particular company. And then at the enterprise tier, they would have a customer success engineer that would probably meet with them, every 2 weeks or so and make sure that they're on track. So the support kind of varies depending on the tier, but there's support for everybody starting from the Discord community.
Okay, so for LandingLens, you've described the product. I think I kind of understand what it does at a high level. You're helping companies build custom models, right, for computer vision. What does a typical workflow look like when you're building a model, like start to finish? Like you meet with a company, you understand like what their problem set is, then what? Like what does the workflow look like?
Yeah. So our number one question is always like, do you already have the images? Um,
Oh,
so like if they already have the images, like
yeah,
we can get them up and running incredibly fast.
yeah.
If they don't have the images, then they're going to need like a camera system and a lighting system and other things. So that we typically work with partners on. But if they already have the images, then the workflow really is just about ingesting the images into our platform. There's a labeling phase where you would actually
Mm.
label the objects, right? And you can get any person off the street to label cats and cars, but you may actually need, a semiconductor expert to label the defects on these like wafers.
Mhm.
So the labeling kind of depends on like how much expertise is required, who's actually labeling the images.
Okay.
Um, the model training largely just runs in cloud compute. So like once you have it all set up, you're going to hit the train button, kind of walk away and come back to evaluate the performance of the model. And then typically, like you're going to put it in production and then develop some sort of continuous improvement loop. So your production images, you'll do some amount of human verification. So it might say, like in our Friday manufacturing run, we had 43 scratches, right? And a human might review those and say, like that's 95% correct. Like here's one that the model missed. Like let's put that back into the training data set so that the next time we train the model, it will be better. And then there's kind of just this continuous improvement loop of making the model better over time and then always redeploying it to the same endpoint so you don't disrupt your production processes.
And the process of labeling the images or the videos, I guess, who typically does that? They need someone internal to do that, or they hire people to do it. That's not something that Landing AI does.
Correct. We don't do that for them. We have, labeling partner teams that we can refer them to, but
Oh, okay.
typically people are like overly afraid of labeling and they'll spend like a 2-hour meeting trying to avoid labeling and come up with a better way to do it versus I usually tell them just like put some music on, grab a cup of coffee and just label for 2 hours. Like you'll be amazed at how much progress you make.
Right.
So people put too much effort in trying to avoid labeling versus just doing it because it's a necessary evil.
How much data do they need though? Like for a video feed, right? You're talking
Yeah.
about a video feed. How much? video training data is needed to train the model? So how much video needs to be labeled in order to like train the model?
Yeah. So the actual technical minimum is 10 images, but you're not going to get a very good model from that.
Yeah.
Typically we want about 50 examples of each like object or class that you're trying to detect.
Oh, okay.
So like going back to like a video feed of say like inside a retail store, like you want to know how many people are in line. So you probably want about 50 examples, which is really not that many. Um, if you were talking about more like an outdoor camera, you would want like daytime images and nighttime images and images in the snow and images with sun, right? So you do need to cover the diversity of the images that that camera will see in production. But typically for indoor settings, like that doesn't vary so much. So you only probably need about 50 to 100.
I like the example of like knowing how many people are in line at a retail store. So what does the labeling process look like? Is it an image with one person labeled one, a picture with two people in line labeled two? Is that like a simplified way of viewing this?
Yeah, so the way you would do it is like you just have one object called person,
Mhm.
and then you would just be like person, person, person. And the key distinction then is like you may have somebody who's just like walking by but is not actually in line, right? So
Mm,
you may have multiple people in that video feed, but not all of them are in line, right? Like some of them
right.
are actually walking or in transit.
Okay.
So so you wouldn't necessarily be labeling all the people, you would just label, like, the people in the line.
Yeah.
And I think I tried to make a demonstration with this using some, public footage from ski lifts. So
Mm.
there's a lot of, ski slopes that will actually have, like, a video feed on YouTube of their ski lift line,
Oh,
right?
really?
And it was a great way to, like, do a demonstration and have, like, an active video feed where you could, like, count how many people were in line. You're not gonna get an actual feed from inside a store unless you're working with that customer.
In terms of the platform itself, LandingLens, again, like same question as ADE. Is this browser based? Is there an API? Is it some other tool, I guess?
Yeah, so LandingLens, has a visual it's a software as a service, like cloud-based platform. Um, Typically, we encourage people to work in the visual user interface. You
Mm.
don't really gain a lot of time by working with the APIs, but there is an API in a Python library for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I guess to clarify that, I would say there's a visual user interface. There's also APIs in Python library, but the most common workflow is to work in the user interface to do the model training.
Mhm.
And then the model can be deployed either in the cloud or at the edge. And then the edge deployment typically involves like Docker containers and other infrastructure to actually like integrate that model.
I see. So do you help with that integration part as well? Like you help build the model. Here's the model. It's fully trained. Then what? Again, do you kind of hand it over to someone else or do you help are you there till the end?
Yeah, I'm pretty much there till the end.
Okay.
The software does really all the model training. So you
Yeah.
shouldn't think of like Andrea does the model training. I will help with the problem framing so that like when you hit the button, you're likely to get a good result. But like
Mhm.
that's really like our secret sauce that the software does the model training for you.
Yeah.
Um, but then like I call it a research project until it's like actually operating in your business, delivering value, right? Like,
Right.
and like you can make a model for a university course, but that only shows that you can make the model, not that you can integrate it with a production system.
Yeah. I was looking at your background. It's interesting. It looks like you studied chemistry extensively.
Yes. Yes.
So, but it doesn't look like you ever worked in chemistry per se. Maybe you were, a professor at some point, but how did you end up transitioning almost immediately to something else, like data science, AI? Like it seemed like almost immediate.
Yeah. So my profile is definitely curated to drop some of the things that don't make a,
Oh,
like consistent story.
okay.
So I really wanted to teach. I'm actually like a two-time PhD dropout because I
Ooh.
really, really, really wanted to teach.
Oh,
Um, So I do have a bachelor's and a master's in chemistry, but that was like in pursuit of a PhD because I wanted to do the whole academic route.
Yeah.
And when I was doing my graduate work at Michigan, I had a chance to do a sabbatical replacement for a faculty member at a four-year college. And I
Yeah.
was like, great, I'm going to get to teach. This is what I've been wanting to do. Um, and then it wasn't quite all that I had hoped for. And then I
Oh,
had kind of a crisis moment of like, what am I going to do with this master's degree in chemistry? So I went into management consulting. So
so when
that was the time where like the big five, like big management consulting firms would just take bright people from various backgrounds and they'll like,
yeah.
we'll teach you what you need to know about business. And so I went directly from my chemistry grad school to working in corporate finance.
So when you say teaching wasn't what you thought it was, what do you mean?
I still love teaching. It's why I coach tennis. It's why I do like these types of like educational sessions. But like with something like undergraduate chemistry, the subject matter never moves along, right? Like you have to teach what's on the MCAT, and like you are going to teach the same class over and over and over again. And I just really thrive on variety. So I think like by the time I had taught the same OChem class like three times,
Yeah.
it's like this is no longer intellectually interesting, right? Like the students change, but the material never does.
Yeah.
And I guess I had failed to realize that because like with other things that like with teaching technology, right? Like it's new every year, if not every month. But like all of the like the undergrad science curriculum never changes.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So I teach at the School of Engineering at Penn, and I'm teaching something that doesn't change much because I'm teaching intro to Python and intro to Java. And it doesn't change that much. I mean,
Yeah.
AI has changed things, but the
Yeah.
code is still the same, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay. And
basically the same material, different students, same material. But I know what you mean. Like it is a little bit, there's only so much you can do with like if it doesn't change. I mean, I could use different examples,
yeah.
but essentially it's the same topics.
Yeah. I learned about myself early on that I thrive on variety, which is why
Yeah.
I love all of the different clients that we work with.
Yeah.
So it's been a much better fit overall.
So I'm gonna ask your advice. What skills do you think developers need to level up in the current wave of AI tools and agentic workflows?
Oh, goodness.
Is it watching your webinars? Watching your
No,
presentations?
no.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I actually think the developers often just need to get a little bit closer to the actual business problems.
Hmm.
So I think there are still like a lot of research projects or like hackathons that are like cool tech, but don't actually solve a real problem.
Right.
So, like making sure that you really understand the business problem, the problem framing, how the thing that you're creating is actually going to be used. And I guess the other thing I would say is like having an appreciation for time to market and like flexibility of the components. So I feel like everything is changing so quickly right now that you want a pipeline where it's like, okay, step C is the current weakest component, but I could swap that if something new comes along, right? And then like component F is now the weakest component, but I could swap that if something new comes along.
Hmm.
So being able to keep your ear to the ground for like what's new and then building pipelines that allow for this kind of flexible swapping of components so that you're not locked into like any one technology.
That makes a lot of sense. You did mention getting closer to the actual business problems. I like that. How do people get experience with that? Like a student per se. They're in college, they're learning all the technical things. But how do they get experiential learning? Like how do they actually get close to actual business problems aside from like getting an internship or working at a company?
It's a great question. I mean, like I have a son who's just finished his bachelor's, he's doing his master's degree this year. And so like his whole like senior design project in engineering was like the first time that like all of this book study actually came to life, right? So they had a 6-month design project where they were actually like embedded with a company and he was the electrical engineer and they had a mechanical engineer and an optical engineer and a software engineer.
Yeah.
um, I think it's really hard to replicate that until you actually start doing it.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, form your own little SWAT team and try to develop your own company, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, and see if the thing that you're creating actually helps somebody or is just cool technology.
Are you ready for the lightning round?
Sure, sure. What do you got?
30 seconds each.
Okay.
One tool you can't live without right now.
Okay, the first thing that came to mind was my toaster oven, but I'm pretty sure
Oh,
that's not what you mean. So I'm gonna go with Claude Code.
okay. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people usually say ChatGPT or some model, but I like the toaster answer, actually.
I use my toaster oven for everything. I
Yeah.
haven't used my regular oven for years.
Oh,
But
you said toaster oven. That's even better. Yeah, it opens.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those are great. Yeah.
But yeah, I use Claude Code like for work and personal, like could not live without that at this point.
Yeah. A misconception about AI that drives you a little crazy.
The branding as if it's new in the last 2 to 3
Yeah.
years. Um, I mean, things like logistic regression to do credit scoring go back to like the 1950s, right?
Yeah.
And now like you can rebrand logistic regression as AI, like that drives me nuts.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So,
Something you're excited about outside of work. The tennis?
yeah, I'd say working on my tennis game. I
Okay.
just wrapped up coaching. Like our fall season just ended, so now I can work on my own game for a while.
Oh, nice. Best piece of career advice you ever received?
This is the one thing that I pass on to like any student that's looking for advice or mentorship is figure out between people, things, and ideas how you want to spend your time. Like,
Hmm.
do you want to spend like half your day with people and half your day with like physical things? Do you want to spend your whole day with ideas? And I find that people can get interested in a lot of different topics. So whether it's climate science or whether it's coffee, like, but there's a difference between like, am I doing climate science where I'm talking to people, or I'm doing like coffee where I'm talking to people, or am I dealing with things and ideas?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say this thing of like figure out if you are energized by people, things, or ideas and like what your ideal split is.
So is your job all of that?
Very few things, right? Like I don't manipulate a lot of physical objects,
Right.
so I'm probably like a people and ideas split.
People and ideas, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite band right now?
So I don't listen to a lot of my own music because my husband is a guitarist
Oh,
and
okay.
his office is across from my office and he's always playing something.
Okay.
So I'm going to say whatever he's playing is my favorite music because I can't really put anything else on anyway
Yeah.
because he's always playing.
Guitar heavy music.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. That's it.
Yeah. That was super fun. Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Thanks again. And I'll be in touch within a couple days.
Okay.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye. Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe. More interviews and demos coming soon.